We will ask this as they introduce themselves.
Read it.
One of you, who wants to call himself Buddy the Elf, asks what's your favorite color. So we're going to ask these guys to share the mic. Do this for us real quick, all right? Just name what church you're from, what your role is at that church, okay? We'll just do that quick, and then as that's happening, if you can think of questions, preferably beneficial questions, that would be a good thing, all right? And text them in, and we'll just toss them at these folks and give them some time to, it's real practical stuff, all right? So now's your chance to ask somebody who's doing what you're training to do information, all right? So good opportunity to do that. So Mrs. Lyons, can you get us kick-started? And Mrs. Lyons is at High Street. Pastor Eddie Lyons is the pastor. This is his wife, and she had no idea she was going to do this. She walked in the room, we said, hey, do you mind? So she was gracious enough to come join us, and I've kind of introduced her, but I'm going to ask her to do that herself, and then let's go down the road here. So get us started, if you would.
Hi, I'm Cindy Lyons, and we're at High Street, and I do a lot of ministry with the women and counseling and just a gamut of things.
Favorite color, sorry.
Pink.
Buddy the Elf would like to know.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, and I also work at High Street. I get to work with my parents, which is really fun. And I am the volunteer coordinator. I also recently started doing the children's ministry, and I do events and also get people connected in like the starting point class and get people connected through membership and stuff like that. Color? Red.
My name is Michael Haley. I am the lead pastor at a church, Cross Creek Church in Colorado Springs. I don't do a whole lot. And blue is my favorite color.
Gary does it all for him. Gary, go ahead.
My name is Gary Shackleton. I'm the executive pastor at Cross Creek Church. I do the finances and business stuff. I'm also the youth pastor. I understand it's a weird mix. Yeah, and whatever Mike needs me to do is what I do. And that's pretty much it, but okay, I'll be back in a minute. And my favorite color is blue.
My name is Jeff, Friendship Baptist Church in Owasso, Oklahoma. I'm the family life pastor there. Also work with the assimilation process. And my favorite color is blue.
My favorite color is blue also. My name is Joey Condello. I'm the senior pastor at Bales Baptist Church in Kansas City. Been there 10 years. And I'm also, believe it or not, I'm the president of the Missouri Baptist Bible Fellowship. And so one of the things we want to do is try and plant some churches here in Missouri. So some of you sharp guys that are getting ready to graduate, you need to come talk to us so we can see about doing that.
My name is Brett Hunter. I'm the worship pastor down in the Dallas area, a church called Harmony Baptist Church. My pastor is Brian Gray. Been there for 9 months. So, blue, believe it or not.
And my name's Cody. I am the student pastor at Park Hill Baptist Church in Pueblo, Colorado. Also temporarily leading the music there. So any of you music guys, I'd like to talk to you. But favorite color is burnt orange.
Cody, I'm going to have to ask you to step off the stage at this time and just keep walking. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you. It's a little upsetting to me, actually. All right, we've had, this won't surprise you at all, but I've had a lot of quotes from Elf, the movie, come in here, and some other things that we don't need to mention. But if you guys can, and I don't know who to lob this at, maybe Tiffany, I'll get you, okay? We'll just start here, because I know High Street works really hard to try to make great connections with meeting needs in the community, and there's been a few questions come in just about that specifically. Are there some things that your churches do to make connections with, gain favor with, whatever that could look like? Have you found best, or what are some things that you've seen as a great way to make connections within the community itself?
Well, one of the big things that we do at High Street is we partner with a local elementary school, Weller Elementary, And it's really great if you meet the needs that the city is already saying that they have. A lot of times, you might get a little resistance if you just go at the city and say, hey, I'd like to do this, and that's not a need that they've even articulated. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but you'll get way more buy-in if you ask them, like, what are your needs? What do you have? What can we do to help? And so in talking to the principal at Weller, we realized it's a Title I school. A lot of kids do not have food on the weekends. And so we wanted to meet that need, and so we do this thing called Power Packs, where we partner with Manna, and we give food on the weekends, every other weekend, to send home with these kids so that they can eat from on Saturday and Sunday. And so partnering with Weller, that's been awesome because that's opened doors for other things. Anytime they have a need, they call us and we try to help with that. And so I'd say like the school system is a really great way to start if you don't know where to start.
And how initially did you find out about the need that there were students that didn't get meals on the weekends? How did that need even come about?
Well, actually, my little brother James went to Weller, and so we kind of firsthand got to see what a Title I school looks like and the families that go there. And other than just seeing a big need, sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. You have no idea what to do. And so we saw the need. We didn't really know what that looked like. And then we had one of our pastor's wives actually saw a 2020 thing, and it talked about how, I don't remember the percentage of people across America in Title I schools don't have food. And so she brought that to my dad and said, we've got to do something, and my dad had already seen the need at Weller, and so we started to do that. So.
Awesome. Anybody else want to chime in on that specific idea? Connection with community, things jump out? Okay, nobody else cares about their community? Sorry, awesome. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll add one thing.
No.
I think what she said great, and that's good. But you're not going to see that need in your office. Does that make sense? You got to get out there, and you'll see those needs and more. So there's that balance of doing what you need to do in your ministry, but getting out there and finding out that need. And I think that's probably where that happened. And so get out there, and the needs will come. Our city, probably not as strong as we don't have Title I schools. We're upper middle class. So we would look at something different to try to, although there could still be that need. We just had a big food drive, which is typically for the poorer side of your community. So there was a small need there, and so we had a big food drive for that. But so just know your culture, know your city. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think a takeaway from the answers, and I know these guys could talk forever about what they do for their communities, is that you can't know those needs until you jump in the middle of it and get to know it and find out what needs to happen. Brett, let me throw this one at you. This question kind of came in specifically for you. What has been your experience with the church's culture? You coming into a new place, understanding the culture of that place. Have you had to change a little bit? Has you had to help the church change a little bit? Can you talk about how that experience has been?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you graduate from here and expect every church to be like a Springfield church, it's not going to work that way. And I didn't even know that until 9 months ago. When I kind of grew up in a real strong church, a real strong connection with the Bible, and the kind of the same lingo that we have here. And I think one of the weirdest things, and I say weird because it just kind of took me by surprise, about DFW is that you would think Dallas would be like the buckle of the Bible Belt. And I think there are churches that are that way. But what you'll find out is that every church has its own subculture. I know I said that in the last two sessions, but every church, man, has got its own culture. And that's just how it works. And it was definitely like a wake-up call for me to come from this great area where there's great churches, and then you go somewhere else where they're doing an awesome work there as well. And there's definitely you kind of have to adapt. When you go to a new environment like that, what it kind of looked like was, just being honest. We're here. A lot of the churches, the people, and then just have a natural understanding of involvement, getting involved with ministries, and sometimes, for my church, Harmony, it's been a little more of a struggle to get them involved in stuff, and it's gotten a lot better in the last 9 months. But especially for the worship team, the culture I stepped into was like a 4-man band every Sunday. There was no rotation. There was no, on the practical side of it, there wasn't a whole lot of like, investing in people. The worship ministry kind of it was just the same thing every Sunday, and there wasn't a whole lot of like reaching out to, within the church. We need more involvement. This is why, you know what I mean? So, the question being just like adapting to a new church culture, you're gonna have to adapt. So, learn your people. Learn what makes them tick. They're gonna have a different sense of humor. They're not gonna get you. I promise they're not gonna get you at all. And so you just have to kind of go into it with okay, this really isn't about me, is it? You know what I mean? You have to go out there and kind of take what you've learned, and that's why it's so important to prepare here. Take what you've learned and be patient with people, and just walk patiently with them and learn what makes them tick, learn how they work. And your pastor also, communicate with him. Hey, how do things go here? What kind of challenges have you had? With involvement. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of how it is for every different church has its own thing. So.
Yeah, I know that was kind of specifically targeted to him, but anything else about adapting to church culture or changes being made in a church or anything like that? Can you jump out, Mike? You want to?
He makes some great points, but you have to, no matter where you go, you have to be you. You have to be who God has called you to be. So you don't, if you try to change every time God calls you to a different ministry, you're confused. So just be who you are. Be who God called you to be, no matter where that is. Now, how you minister to people is going to change, but you have to be you. So that's all I would add.
I'd like to hear from Jeff because he actually transitioned from one ministry to the next in his own church, and so I want to hear how that's going for him.
I think we all would like to hear that.
Yeah, let me just spend 5 or 10 minutes with you guys talking about. My philosophy, and I hope this penetrates you, is that when you leave and go and be a part of a great ministry, and I sense a great desire, it's like you can't contain it for you guys to get excited. But I've always had the impression that it's not my show, it's not my agenda. And so, I was doing youth, and I still was excited about youth, but a need came to transition to a different role in the church, and, it wasn't about me, it wasn't about, Jeff, and so if you could kind of adapt that, fall underneath the leadership of your pastor, and kind of follow that, and it's just so much easier. It's just, pastor, whatever you want, I'll do. A lot of times it just wasn't what I really cared to do, but I just did it, because... And just love God, love people, but transitioning, that was interesting. From the youth to the young couples specifically, the funny thing is I found out that there wasn't much difference other than they're married. Some of the topics that I taught about as far as like purity, just couldn't be applied in that setting, but it was a little different. It was interesting. They've changed the idea of adolescence. It's kind of interesting. They changed. Came across the state. We've been talking about this. But the adolescence has changed from 18 now to 28 to 32. It's amazing. And so I looked at these young couples and I'm thinking, this is almost the same thing. They're more mature and obviously. So, but ultimately, wherever you're at, find the need, dig in, and serve, and just throw yourself at it, and God will bless it.
A handful of questions have come in along the lines of this, and so I don't know. Whoever can jump in, Gary, maybe I'll call you out just to jump us off on this. Question comes in a line of, what did you wish maybe somebody would have told you, or what do you wish you would have done different, when you were in college? Was there something, a focus maybe that could have been shifted, or in other words, they're kind of asking, what advice do we need to know right now that you wish you would have gotten as a student and maybe just didn't get? Is that? I mean, that's awfully broad. I know that, but practical ministry type stuff. I mean, just anything pop in mind.
If you get in my class, that's kind of what it was mainly about. But I think the biggest thing for me is the Lone Ranger mentality type deal. As far as having a mentor, having somebody that I'm growing from, I'm learning from, I really wish I would have been pushed more to understand the importance of that. A mentor should really be someone that challenges you to the nth degree, that also can be your biggest cheerleader at times when you're really struggling, can be there to support you, to help you. And with that, I would shoot for the stars. I mean, the person you think is the greatest person in ministry, that's who I would ask first. And ask them if they would spend time with you once a month on a phone call or personally or whatever. And with that mentor, the opposite of Lone Ranger mentality would be the teamwork aspect of working together as a team in your staff. If you're running a youth ministry with your youth leader helpers, I don't feel that I ever really understood. Maybe I was taught that and I just missed it. But I had such a mentality that I had to do all this by myself, and I had to do it, and it became difficult to trust other people because they weren't going to do it the way I wanted to do it or whatever. But when those walls were broken down, it was amazing how much more effective my youth ministry came when I entrusted other people and I worked with those people, and the effectiveness of our church as a whole. And as a staff, we were a team and we were united and we worked together. And I literally was on a staff where people would come up and be like, I just want to hang out with you guys because you seem like you all really love each other. And that was just such a huge mentality of understanding, you know, you can't do this alone. You can't do it, period. Jesus is really the one that does it. You just need to make yourself available. But even within that, you've got to have people around you, people that are challenging you to become better, and also people that you're working with to accomplish whatever it is. That'd be my...
Yeah, and before we jump off maybe to some other answers specifically to that, how do you develop that? Are there some practical things that you can point to that develop that culture of we're doing this together? I don't feel like I have to be the one that does everything. Is it just time spent together? Is it certain things happen in staff meetings? Do you study stuff together? Any thoughts on that? Anybody? Gary?
I would say specifically with, like, I'll say with youth ministry, because the reality is it's going to be really difficult for you to create that culture in your church if your lead pastor doesn't want that culture. But you'll have the opportunity to create that culture within the ministry you run, whether it's your youth group or you're the worship leader with your worship team. And a lot of it's just kind of like the stuff Rick and Frank were talking about. It's planting that vision within those leadership and entrusting them and working together. And I take my youth leaders, we're going in May, and we're doing a training where they're going to understand exactly everything we're trying to accomplish, and we're going to know who we are, and we're going to work together and give people different assignments. And, you know, I think a lot of it happens in staff, like John was just asking, with doing our staff is very much built that way because that's the desire of my lead pastor. But we go through books and we read books together. We have great conversations about them, and we evaluate every aspect of our ministry to make it the best we can possibly make it, so then God can show up and show off.
Anybody else? Any thoughts about that?
I think when you're working with your team, as long as all they're doing is handling paper plates, then they're just going to be the best paper plate type person. But allowing them to actually work with people and be a part of seeing people's lives change, then that team gets tighter and tighter, you know. And so I know that's kind of like your role is. I know they even heard that something about the videos you're doing, and now you're not the face of the videos as much anymore. And I've heard that through and I know in our visitation program, we have a guy. He jumped in there, and now he's the face of that, and he is the #1 cheerleader for our visitation. He runs around saying, "You coming Tuesday night? You come?" Only because instead of him putting the papers together, he's now the face of it. So just kind of let him see and feel that involvement.
Is there anything you wished to and again, this has kind of been a lot of questions that have come in on this idea. Is there anything you wish you would have focused on more or done differently while you were in college? Yeah.
A disciplined prayer life. You know, I've only been in ministry for vocational ministry for 9 months or about 8. And I've already been finding out already that you can get so caught up in the day-to-day. I don't care if it's in the morning, it's at nighttime. Make a prayer list, whatever it takes you to truly just ask the Lord to guide you. There's not a whole lot of power in ministry without prayer. And you're not really going to see a move of God if it's not soaked in prayer. So that's what I wished I had done more while I was here, is set those habits in motion. Whereas just now, like a month ago, like I actually really, okay, I'm making a prayer list, I'm going to do this, you know what I mean? And I've already seen it change me a lot, so.
You know, while we're in Bible college, we are so busy reading so many books. And you really are busy. You've got jobs, you've got a lot of going, you've got your social life, which is so important. And I think I majored in social life while I was in Bible college. I mean, I had the best time ever. But I have to say, I almost made some of the worst decisions of my life because I was not in the Word of God doing a Bible study. And you have so much there's so much nowadays that's offered now that Bible studies are easy to get. There's so many, and not just doing a Bible study, do it with somebody in a small group. Have accountability. Share how God's working in your heart, you know. And back then, we were too cool for that. We were just too cool. And we were, you know, it was all about our social life. And yes, we're in the ministry, but we're, you know. And now I look back and think, you know what, if I had been in the Word of God on a regular basis, not just for class, but been in the Word of God learning, I would have avoided so many things. And I really think we have a whole new generation of young women now who I see are passionate about God and who are absolutely not ashamed of it. They're not too cool to serve God with all of their hearts. And I love that because, it says in the Word of God that God's going to pour out His Spirit on our sons and our daughters. And I just see that happening. And just embrace it. Don't get so caught up with your schoolwork that you forget to have that personal relationship with Christ and to absolutely, learn from each other and then go out and get a mentor. God, I wish I had done that. I look back at all the wonderful, wonderful people that were in our college back then. Never occurred to me to say, could I spend some time with you and just learn from you? Could I, just find out the way you do things? I was always an observer of people and learned from observing, but I wish I had the courage to say, hey, can I hang out with you and just spend some time with you and learn from you? Those are some of the things that I wish I had done.
Real quick, can you speak, and you did this just a second ago, and I think obviously both of those things are exactly what we need to hear. I mean, I think Bible college might be the easiest place on the planet to get lazy in your walk with God because you're surrounded by it all the time. You learn about it in a classroom, and you go to church, and you have services, and it's just the world we live in, and so we assume that we're going to be okay because we learned about it in Bible history instead of wanting it for ourselves. And so what a great encouragement, something I think we all need to hear. Can you guys too specifically talk about, to the ladies that are in the room, how God can use them, what their mindset should be, what could happen. Can you give them just a little bit of encouragement in that sense? Tiffany, you want to get started?
Okay. Well, I'm super passionate about, as a woman, being able to do and serve God in a complete way. I think that going through Bible college, I kind of thought, God, I so can't wait to serve you. I'm on fire. Because God did call me as a woman to serve him, right? And so we come to BBC, and I think that, and it's nothing that BBC teaches. It's kind of this invisible, maybe sometimes more invisible thing of like, and then when you find your other half, then bam, you can serve God. And you know what? I've seen that happen, and it's awesome to see two people who love the Lord, who want to serve him together, and they can do even more, and that's awesome. But there's something that we can do as individuals and as women. We can serve God, and we can be, we can play a key role in what he's doing around the world and in his local church. And so I have been just so inspired. It's been a battle, because, coming, it's a Baptist school. I work at a Baptist church. There's not a lot of roles. Like, when I thought about what my dream job was, I was thinking, okay, so what can women do? And, you can play the piano, and which is, I can't, so I was out. And then, you could be the children's director, which is funny because now that's what I am. But that's not what I really wanted to do initially. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to serve God, and I had no idea what that meant. And I kind of went through a time where I was kind of discouraged, like, God, why in the world would you call me to serve you if you don't have a place for me to serve you? And so that's how I felt, and I was like, God, I just do not understand. I mean, all of my friends, I was really good friends with lots of guys, and they're like, I'm going to start a church. I'm like, God, I'd do something, you know, I would do something, but what, you know? And so I didn't even know how to dream. And what's cool is that God has just been with me every step of the way. And I'm just a few years out of college, and I've seen God use me. And what's funny is a lot of times it takes me looking back to see what God has done and how he has been able to use me, because a lot of times I don't even really get it while it's happening. And so it's just been so cool to see how I am able to do stuff. I am able to serve God in huge ways. I'm able to, you know, I don't know if I should get in specifics with what I do at church, but anyway, there's a lot of things that I've seen God do some really big things, and he's able to use me and like figure out what my passions are and what my giftings are. And you know, I love speaking in front of people. And so what does that look like as a Baptist? You know what I mean? Other than teaching Sunday school, I don't know what that means still. But what's cool is God has given me opportunities. I teach our starting point class, so all of the new members, I get to tell them how they can get connected and that God has a plan for them and can use them. And I have seen people come and light up at the idea that God actually has a plan for them. And that absolutely rocks my world, that I get to tell them what God has planned for them. And what's been really encouraging and keeps me going is looking at other women who serve God in the ministry. I think that's so important, to look and have kind of your heroes that you're like, God, if you could use me like that, that would just be amazing. And you know, and just pray and ask God. I still don't know what he has for me in the next 5 years, but I just know that everything that he is opening the door for, I want to step through it, and I want to follow him, and I know that he can use me, even as a single lady. And so a lot of my favorite people are like Christine Kane. She's doing incredible things. I see a lot of really strong women who are doing amazing things. And so just being able to see God use other women, I think, is an encouragement to me, because I'm like, God, you can use me. And I don't want to ever put a cap on what that means. And so anyway, so that's my journey, I guess.
When I graduated from Bible college, I knew that I wanted to be in missions. I didn't know what that would look like. And I had just, I wasn't married. And I thought, well, my mother got married at 22, and I guess I thought I would somehow be married too at 22. And so I started looking at this whole life that I had that God had been preparing me for, and I started just saying, Lord, I'll do whatever you want me to. And I think that's the key, is just saying at every step, Lord, I will do whatever you want me to, and it doesn't depend on whether I'm married or not. Because I saw a lot of people say, well, I'm going to serve God when I get married. And, or I can't go into ministry because I'm not married yet, men and women. And then I saw some people say, I want to serve God, so, oh, you'll do. Come on, let's do, you know, and just grab somebody, you know, and it just, that's not the ideal. You know, you got to believe that God is in control, and that God, he has gifted you. He has gifted you. I love the idea of, he has gifted you for service. He's given us a spiritual gift. He's given us a heart for certain things. He uses our abilities, our personality, and our experiences. I love that. You can trust that God is the one directing this journey. And sometimes it doesn't happen in our time frame. So as women, sometimes we get to the point where we think, in our circles, these are all the opportunities that exist. And we kind of feel like, but I don't fit in one of those. And I knew that I didn't want to, I have been a secretary, I have been a receptionist, but I knew that's not my life calling. And the longer that I served him in every step that I took after Bible college, I knew by the time I was 25, I'm going to be a missionary, single or not. I just knew God was just preparing me for that. And so I started working at Liberty University in their missions department. We went all over the world taking students, and everywhere we'd go, I'd be like, okay, God, is this it? Is this it? And God just kept saying, I'm developing this for you. You know, I'm in the process. And it wasn't until I was 28 that I ended up marrying someone who was already on the mission field. Eddie and I both grew up together. And I truly felt that sense of God has ordained this. God has put this together for me. So I got to be a missionary. I got to be a missionary. I loved every part of being a missionary. I can't tell you, I raised my kids there. I loved it. I taught Bible college for 10 years. We got to train young people. We got to have Bible studies, all the different aspects of being a missionary. But there are so many aspects that women, so many areas of service that women can serve in that I don't think that we've tapped into. If you think about it, women connect to women better than anybody else. And you think about our divorce rate in the United States alone. 50% of the marriages divorce. Who's going to minister to those women who come out of those marriages? And when we came back to the States, I remember I didn't want to just fall into all my roles that I have always done. You know, I just really started praying about what should I really put my time into, and God really made it very clear. I'm supposed to have a women's class for women of every different marital status. And that has been so powerful, and to really work in women's ministry and different other things. But there's so many opportunities out there. There's so many opportunities that I think that God is raising up for women. And if you have a gifting for it, some people say, you know, I really love nursing, but I don't know how that fits into missions. I guarantee you it will fit together. If you say, I don't know how these two things fit, but I'm really interested in it. God is preparing your specific mission for you. Pursue both of them. Pursue both of them. It will come together.
And I would encourage you this, because there have been a handful of questions come in. These two ladies would love to discuss the nuances of that more. So please come ask them. One of the threads that's come through a lot too is if you guys can just jump in and see how this looks in your church. It has to do with discipleship and mentoring. Is there a structure you have for that? How does that look like in your church? Is that an intentional thing? I mean, how do you go about that? Somebody want to jump in and roll with that?
We try not to disciple people because, no, I'm just kidding. In the past, we've started discipleship and it's kind of faded. This year, in January, we really tried to focus on one-on-one discipleship. And so what we're doing this year is every pastor that's on staff is discipling one guy. And their role this year is to disciple this guy. And then next year, we'll grab somebody else, and those 4 guys will go. So what we're trying to focus on now is one-on-one discipleship. And so we'll spend a year discipling somebody. And it may take longer than that. Some of them maybe sooner than that. But that's kind of our plan that we've started this year is we're going to start with these 4 guys. Because what we found out is this year in our church, going through trying to nominate and find men that we could put as deacons, we didn't have any. And so I was like, well, we got to start discipling these guys so that we have men that can be in roles of leadership. So that's what we kind of focused on. We had started before, and the women are really good at that, and men are horrible at discipling. And so we just like, I don't know what it is. At least I am. Probably shouldn't confess this as a pastor, but I don't really like spending time one-on-one with another guy. You know. Maybe you like that. I don't know. But, so for me, I have to really force myself to do that. So that's what our process is. It's just to kind of disciple men so that we have leaders in our church. I think Joey likes it a lot.
Somebody else jump in. What does that look like? Well, I don't know about that, but how does that look in your church? Go for it.
I think discipleship is something we are working on. I think it's a weakness in all churches is discipleship, and we have pockets of it, but we don't have we're working on having a good, strong, steady stream of it. But I'll tell you one thing: is discipleship's just not throwing books at people and telling them to read it. Discipleship's one-on-one, doing life together. And as you're trying to be influential in this area, also we have a big craze of behavior modification instead of heart transformation. And so we always try to fix the behavior instead of try to change the heart. And so in your discipleship efforts, it's something our goal is as we're trying to strengthen our discipleship is to implement that phrase is let's don't worry about behavior modification, let's worry about heart transformation. So
Joe, you can start this one since you're shuffling that mic off all morning. And everybody, I want everybody to answer this if you can, so be thinking he's just the first one, so he's got to think a little quicker. Give us one quality you think of a successful leader in ministry.
I think faith, I think you gotta be able to, I appreciated what Rick was talking about up here because he's got the vision God usually gives the vision to the lead guy in the church, and then you have to turn around and communicate that. And when you do that, I don't care if you're the youth pastor, the senior pastor, the music pastor, if God's given you a vision for your area of ministry, or if it's the whole ministry, somebody's going to be negative about it, and so you got to overcome that, and you got to make sure that that's what God's told you to do. But once you get that vision, just run with it and have faith that it can be pulled off. And I was going to say, this goes back to earlier. You guys, whatever behavior that you have now, or habits, good habits or bad habits, whatever you have now, that's what's going to happen when you're in ministry. So whatever you're forming now, don't think I'm going to get in the ministry and everything, and then I'm going to spend 5 hours in prayer a day. You're not. And don't think I'm going to get married and then everything's going to be great, because your wife's just going to nag you all the time and you don't have time for nothing. I was kidding. But you know what I'm saying?
This, right? We capture that? Okay.
We always have this someday attitude, someday it's going to be better. No, it's today. It starts today. So whatever you want for your future to be, you have to start today.
Cody, why don't you break it? Quality of a successful leader in ministry. Can you throw something at us?
Yeah, one word is kind of tough to grasp all that you want, but I would say just a servant, and vision. Anybody who's willing to help on any level is somebody worth following. I found that in the little bit of time that I've been in ministry is, I love that when you're under a lead pastor who's willing to stay outside and snow plow the sidewalks, and salt the sidewalks or cut the grass, anything like that. Just the little things. Being a servant is something that I think a lot of people miss out on. And then vision is huge. Where are you going? Where are you? Where are you going? And what are you doing to get there? So that's huge.
Right.
Well, sitting here thinking, and vision is such a great one. That's probably the first one I would have said, and I had a little more time to think about it, I guess. And I can't really get away from this one thought, I guess. And I think one thing that God wants to see in all the leaders in every church is a striving for holiness. I don't know. I just feel like that's where it's got to start. If you're gonna lead a church and you're gonna lead them to love the Lord, you can't harbor sin in your heart. You can't. You gotta let go of all bitterness and selfishness and pride. Good grief! It's so easy to exalt yourself in ministry because everyone looks to you for the answer. Everyone, you know what I mean, and you kind of get this mentality that you have the answer to every life question, and that's kind of more humility, but. You know what I'm saying? Just strive for holiness, if you're going to be a leader in a church, and that's something that, you readily respect in a leader, and that's something that's going to catch on to your people, like as we're reaching the world, like we're in it, but we're separate because we live a different way of life, and we just can't forget that. We just can't. So, anyway.
I would say if you're not the lead, loyalty would be it. And many of us are going to enter into that, just be loyal. But to answer the direct question would be authenticity. And I worked in youth ministry for 14 years, 2 different churches, and I never tried to be that youth pastor that dressed and talked, and it wasn't me. And I think it was a great thing I didn't have to worry about. I think as a leader, if you struggled with holiness and you tell the people you're leading, I've gone through some struggles. With this holiness, I'm working on it. I think that goes a long way. So whatever all these qualities that you're saying is the one thing. The authenticity of it is if you struggle, communicate that or whatever. Just the authenticity of it. So.
Do I have to give you a new one? No. I agree with everything they said. I would also say a hard worker. And for me, this may be my personal struggle. Maybe none of you deal with this, but I feel that I'm a pretty hard worker, and I'll do pretty much anything that's asked of me. But if the person leading me treats it as if you need to do this because it's below me, it's very difficult for me to want to do that. I understand in my role with my lead pastor, there's going to be a lot of things he doesn't do because he doesn't have time to do. But I've never, in my situation, felt, I 100% believe he is a hard worker, and I've never felt like he's treated as, I'm better than this, so you need to do that. And I feel that that's how I need to even lead in my youth ministry and in everything. My youth leaders don't need to think, well, you need to do, I'm doing this because Gary thinks he's better than it. I think they need to see that heart that you're willing to do whatever it takes, but there are things for us to be most effective that I can't do all of it myself. And being that hard worker, being willing to do whatever it takes to make that ministry as successful as it can possibly be.
If I have to come up with a new word, I'd have to say humility. Just learn to be humble. It's not about you. Not a new word, but a new word from what they haven't said. But just to lead with humility, you have to be willing to be humble because it's not about you. It's about him. What's that? I cut you off, Joey? Sorry, I got the mic, Joey. Learn to be humble. I don't know if that's a good example of it, but learn to be humble.
Well, I was gonna say vision, but you guys got that. But I would say when I look at a leader that I think is, has a good quality, I think the biggest thing is to be able to cast that vision. It's something to have a vision, and the difference between somebody who has a good idea and somebody who is able to lead somebody is to be able to articulate that vision and cast it to the people that you're trying to start something with. And so to have a good idea, I've had lots of good ideas, but if I can't articulate it to you and get you excited about what the vision is, then I've not done a very good job of trying to lead you in a particular area. And then and then the other word that I was going to use is and then enabling your team or your people to do that. So just to cast a vision with nothing to grab a hold of other than excitement will often just leave people excited and then they'll drop. So if you give them something, you enable them to be a part of the vision, then I think that's a good leader.
All these have been so good, and I think it's part of a big whole. The word that came to my mind immediately was integrity. 25 years ago, perhaps, you would have come into a church and there would have been a respect factor for you because you were in the ministry and they kind of respected that call and everything. But because so many people have blown it, so many visible people on big platforms have blown it, when you go into a church, and perhaps they've blown it in your church that you're going to, when you go into a church, you're going to have a lot of, well, let's wait and see. Is he or she the real deal? You may be in a church 10 years before they realize what you say in your heart is sincerely the truth. So, to have that integrity, is so important because, first of all, it goes both ways. Do you have the integrity in your heart for God to trust you with a vision? To trust you with an assignment? God gives you a little bit at a time, the things that he's entrusting to you right now while you're in Bible college. Are you taking them seriously? And he says, I love that. I love it. They believe that what I'm giving them to do is so important, they are going to follow through with it with all their heart. Then he starts to give you a little bit more because he knows that you're faithful in the small things. And then he starts to give you a little bit more. And then by the time you're a young adult and you're perhaps in your 30s and you're in the ministry, then God just keeps adding things to your life to give you as an assignment. He knows he can trust you with it. Then sometimes he gives you assignments you think, I didn't want that. That's really hard. But God knows he's been preparing you all this time. So knowing that you have the integrity, and it's something that is totally given by all of these things that these men have said, by saying, Lord, I want to live a holy life. The Lord says, walk worthy of the call that you have. And I take it seriously. I want to be able to raise my hands holy unto the Lord and not have sin in my heart. I think that's a whole other subject is how to maintain that integrity. But at the same time, if you have integrity that God can trust you, then the people in the audience and the people in your church, the people that you do life with, they can trust you. They need to know that you're not going to be someone who is going to be something at home and something at church. And then you need to have integrity with your family. I mean, they're the most important people. They're who are going to see the real you. And that is what makes the difference for the long haul. If we have integrity and we're committed to a life integrity, that we don't just do the ministry, but we are absolutely doing life with God, and that we are that sincere, and that we're not perfect, but God absolutely knows. He has our heart, and that he can trust us. Then he can surely trust us with people.
I just want to say one other thing. Is you have to figure out what you're good at and what you stink at. You know what I mean? If you spend a lot of time doing stuff that you're not any good at, you're going to be discouraged and depressed all the time. And so what you have to do right off the bat is just say, okay, like for me, I'm good, like maybe communication or networking, but I'm horrible with administration. So if we're going to do a big event at our church, I just put it on the calendar and say, you're in charge of putting it all together. Because if it's up to me, you know, I'm like, it's an hour from now. Okay, what should we do? You know what I mean? So I figured out early on that they don't even trust me with the calendar. So you figure out what you're really good at and spend most of your time doing that. You still got to do the other stuff that you don't like or that you're not good at, some. But actively look for people to surround yourself with everyone that is good at what you're not good at, and then everything will run smoother.
Yeah, you know, we have obviously way more questions we have time to get to, and students, and can we just say thank you to these folks for coming to hang out with us, answering our questions. There are many more that we couldn't get to, specific about women's ministry, specific about certain strategies. Cody, there are those that want to know how they can look as cool as you with the mohawk. There are those that continue to send me quotes from the movie Elf. There are those that want directions to Doling Park. Joey, I may send them your way. I'm not quite sure what to do with that one. It means a lot to us for you to have taken some time out to come invest in our students and be here on campus. So really, that's a big deal to us. We thank you for that. I want to ask us to do this real quickly before we'll do this and then we're done. Any announcements at all? Okay. What?